Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're going to cover the stories we've seen from this week in cannabis from December 28th, 2020 to January 3rd, 2021. And I want to wish you all a very happy new year. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video, please just leave a like or a thumbs up, as it really helps out my channel, and I would really appreciate it. And then, of course, if you want to learn about this industry, but you don't know where to start, please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any new episodes. And then I would recommend going back and starting with the series I made called Reality Check Cannabis in 2020. It's an 8-episode educational series on the plant and investing. I made that from September to October, and then you can watch episodes of This Week in Cannabis, which I've been covering since October to now to help you get caught up to speed. So let's jump in. We can see this awesome headline that New York lawmakers pre-file 8 cannabis bills for 2021 as state pursues legalization, or as the state pursues legalization. But it's important to notify this is a little bit misleading as well, because although they are pre-filing 8 bills, these measures each deal with reforming the state's current medical cannabis programs, but they do come amid a strong push from the governor and legislator to legalize cannabis for adult use next year. Assuming that would be 2021. I'm not sure if they assume this or if they mean next year being 2022. We shall see. But some of these things are good, obviously, like removing serious condition to just condition or symptoms. So giving people who, again, only have access to opioids an alternative, which is great and want that healthy alternative. Normalizing a lot of these procedures, considering cannabis a prescription drug. All of these things are good changes that are important for their medical program. And again, as states make these decisions, they have to make changes as they go. Now, all of these pieces of legislation are being introduced as New York lawmakers pursue recreational cannabis legalization. Now, here's the thing. Cuomo has promised this in 2019, he's promised this in 2020, and he's going to be promising this in 2021. Had Cuomo done this in 2019, he'd be a hero right now. They'd have at least $1 billion in tax revenue that they did not have 2 years ago, and he would be seen as a G. But of course, if you're a politician, you can't be that forward-thinking. You do have to impress your constituents and all the wealthy old people who are likely not looking forward as much as young people want to be. And just they're, making decisions for their right now. Nonetheless, that's just how politics works. So we have to know that we can always expect delays, but pressure is what we're looking for. And most importantly, 2021 seems to be shaping up as the productive year to actually enact the policy. You have such a budget gap, especially now because they haven't done anything. This is going to be an easier conversation. And it's, again, Cuomo has also said that the pressure will be on to legalize as they need it to boost the economy amid the health crisis. And it's also goes towards changing the narrative, which is great to see in what we want. Now, I've covered this up until now. The Georgia Senate runoff is on Tuesday, and strong early vote turnout gives Dems hope in Georgia. Now, Dems are encouraged by the stats and the data that shows that their voters are underperforming and voting early, set to conclude next week. Now, if you've watched any of these past videos, I've showed you polls, and those same polls show that both Democrats are in the lead. Now, ultimately, the more you worry or think about it, the more it's going to drive you crazy. As this has been doing for me the past week. So I'm just literally chilling and waiting for Tuesday to come. And again, regardless, I'm very optimistic, but I just hope that with all the change that we've seen and all the momentum in our direction, this could be the icing on the cake. That's what I think we're all hoping for. Now, the good news is, though, that more than 2.3 million people, have voted as of Tuesday morning through mail-in ballots or in-person voting for the 2 races, already topping the record for most votes in a Georgia runoff. So obviously they're optimistic that records are being broken, and Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are the Democratic candidates in the election. Now, the one thing I just wanted to scroll down, I'm not going to cover too much on here because, again, there's no control. We have no control over this. It's just going to happen. We have to hope the people in Georgia have been paying attention. But the Republicans have been really relying on people to just show up on the day, as the GOP always does. They want people on the day to show up and vote. But as you can see, they're even getting nervous, the Republican candidates. Weather could be an issue next week. We only have Tuesday, so you've got to get out and vote before Thursday. This shows me that they're getting a little bit scared and that they really don't necessarily have as good of a grasp on what the results or the outcome could be. That obviously costs spending money to gather the data, but that's what the Dems did. So just going to leave that at that. If you want to read the article, you can, but Tuesday is going to decide that vote. We've been waiting a long time. Let's hope for the best, folks. Now, this was another article I wasn't expecting, but cannabis legalization could advance even under McConnell, top Senate Democrat says. Yeah, okay, Chuck Schumer, it's very wishful thinking. And again, just to highlight the wording, could advance even under McConnell. It's just, well, when? Sooner than later would be great. And yeah, this surprised me, but let's look a little bit deeper into it. Senator Chuck Schumer said if the Democrats control the chamber and he replaces McConnell as majority leader, he will act on legalization legislation. So again, this vote goes to the Dems and the Senate flips. That means Schumer is going to make changes, or at least put these bills that are sitting on the Senate floor. He's going to at least allow them to vote. It'll move a lot faster because, on the issue of cannabis, God forbid, he's not the majority leader, but he believes that the pressure on McConnell is going to increase and we could see some progress. Now, again, 68% of the citizens of a democracy of the United States believe that this should be legal. So the fact that even the government is stalling is just shows a sign that there's such a disconnect between reality and the people in power. But the main thing that stands in the way is McConnell. But Chuck Schumer here, talking to Hakeem Jeffries, basically says that where is he? If I become Senate Majority Leader, I put it on the floor, and my guess, Hakeem, it'll pass. It'll get Democratic and Republican votes. All we need is a Senate Majority Leader to just put it on the floor. That's it. And the thing is trending in the right direction, mentioned Jeffries, which is good. And it's like, this is the thing. The general body, even Republicans, Democrats, regardless of what you identify with, just humans agree it's the right thing to do at this point. We got to move forward. And this is the innovation we need to just, I honestly believe that the bias that people have almost towards minorities and people that are different from them is just because of the fear and rationality and thinking that has just, created the misconception about cannabis in general. So that's just something I wanted to point out, is that, yes, it is the right thing to do at this point. Like, what are we waiting for? And as we've seen from evidence in all of these states, there wasn't an increase in crime. There wasn't an increase in people becoming drug dependent. People are using cannabis recreationally, and it's improving their lives. They're healing. So why would we not take advantage of this? So again, despite Schumer saying that it could advance in the next Congress, even if Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell stays in control. And that means even if the Republicans, or if both Dems don't win the Senate and one of the Republicans wins, which is very possible and likely, then Mitch would stay in control of the Senate. And so again, though, this gives us hope that something could happen, but the most plausible thing would just be that the Senate flips and Schumer gets in. Now, cannabis is legal in Montana, recreational use of cannabis at least, not recreational sales. And this is a big difference, and this is just going to show you a state that did it wrong. And they're not going to benefit from legalizing because they did it wrong, and I'll show you, unfortunately, what is holding them back. When the clock struck midnight in 2021, cannabis became legal for recreational use in Montana. But this is the interesting thing. You can grow it and possess it, but you can't go and buy it at a store. It will be a while, though, before you can legally buy cannabis in Montana. Probably not until 2022. When licensing goes into play, we're kind of in a weird area right now where it's legal to progress but not legal to purchase, so there's a lot of uncertainty. Why is there uncertainty? It's because the authority in Montana won't allow us to evolve. Look, listen to this. Supporters say legalizing cannabis or recreational cannabis, and this would again just be getting stores open and allowing people to buy it, would bring in much needed tax revenue. Now, Montana only has 1 million people, so they estimate that this could generate $43 million a year for the state. But what's the problem? Some law enforcement, medical, and professional groups oppose the measures. This is the problem. They argue legalized cannabis will add to the state's growing drug addiction problems. False. Evidence shows that it won't. It creates safety concerns in the workplace. False. If anything, alcohol does. The risk is unintentional exposure to children. False. The data shows that youth use drops once you legalize, and increase medical cannabis in adolescents. Let people make their own decisions. It's just this old 70s way of thinking that is in the Congress and delaying, us moving forward with this. It's the same problem in some states like Montana, and that is why the people of Montana are the ones that are going to suffer the most, because it's the young people that are at least voting for this change, but it's the people in power that are too slow to make the change because they think the old-fashioned way, and they're not caught up with the facts and the reality of the situation. So, for now, Montana, you can grow for personal use and smoke in your home. However, you cannot buy and no entrepreneurs can, sell and supply the demand, which is crazy because when you think about it too, it's so expensive to grow this in your home, to do it well. The materials, the lighting, the electricity, it's just wrong. Sorry, Montana, you did a bad job. So that's why we're not looking forward to what happens in Montana, and I just hope for the people that this happens sooner than later. Now, thousands of cannabis cases expunged due to legalization in Chicago. This is the type of news we want to see, and this is how the narrative gets changed. Illinois Governor Like, thank you, J.B. Pritzker. You are an amazing governor. You are a leader. Announced Thursday for the forgiveness and expungement of about 500,000 criminal cases. Criminal cannabis cases. So again, they're not criminal. It should just, like, that's why we got to remove that word. They issued pardons for over 9,000 low-level cannabis convictions and wiped clean more than 492,000 non-felony cannabis-related arrest records. So think about that. By just clearing this and allowing, almost 500,000 people to go back to their families and their communities, you have to be optimistic and believe that at least maybe 20% of those people mean to do well and they're going to make positive change. And if you don't believe that, then it's your thinking that might still be the problem that's not allowing you to move past this issue, right? I just want to point this out, folks, is that we cannot solve problems with the same thinking that got us in this problem. So this is so good to see. This is righting the wrongs, and the intent is to reduce the impact of the war on drugs and minorities who are disproportionately arrested and locked up for cannabis crimes. So again, folks, this is just really good awareness. This is changing the narrative, and this is putting cannabis and what legalization and changing the laws does. It's putting it in a positive light. It's the same article from The Hill, a bigger publication with many shares, so I wanted to show this, but look at how many states are actually doing this. Despite what the federal government, they put on the show, they don't make much change. California, Colorado, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Nevada, New York, North Dakota, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington have enacted legislation to explicitly expunge or see the records of these convicted, remove the records, of these convicted low-level cannabis crimes. Just like this, the fact that they have enacted legislation to expunge this, we want to see them move forward, but this is what we want to see. This is how you right the wrong. Now, more good news. Predicted California cannabis business failures haven't happened, and COVID has played a positive role. Why? Because despite everything we could have imagined this year, this Rona situation has caused cannabis to be deemed essential, which could not have happened without Rona, seriously. So it's crazy to think that is the situation, but that is the facts of where we sit right now. And in July, California shattered past records of adult use sales. Now, the main thing is that people were expecting that business conditions would go under, as many restaurants have, as many other businesses that have been deemed non-essential have. However, this has not happened to the largest cannabis market. In fact, if anything, the reverse seems to have come to pass, which is amazing. And this includes the entire industry being deemed essential during the pandemic, steady sales as a direct result of unemployed workers receiving $600 in stimulus payments. So Americans are using their stimulus to buy cannabis to reduce their stress. No duh. Probably to help them sleep too. Businesses and investors doubling down on their original market bets to weather the year because sales have gone in the opposite direction of most people thought, and likely interplay between legal and illegal operators. I don't know what this means, and I never saw any reference of this later on in the article. But I think the main thing is, look, it's deemed essential, and it's more of a medicine than we've ever understood it before, and that's why the research is needed. So I just want to point that out, especially in California, one of the most saturated states. This is huge. And yeah, despite the pandemic, it's been deemed essential and it has grown. They expect some boost in M&A activity, the legal and illegal markets overlapping. I think this is less of an issue, and I think it's just more of the essential label being given. So this is important going forward, and reiterate why the U.S. MSOs are the gift that likely keeps giving, because despite the pandemic, despite a global pandemic, look at what these companies have managed to do over the past year, starting from January, hitting bottoms in about March when every other industry did, and they have risen significantly since then. And honestly, even Terra Ascend and Jushi have just gone under my radar. There's just so much to pay attention to. I've not seen them, so I will be taking some time to look into them. I do not believe they're profitable or anywhere close to some of these bigger MSOs, but this growth is optimistic, and that's what you want to see at least, and that's reflecting in their share price. It was a breakout year for MSOs. Again, despite a global pandemic, they're seeing massive amounts of growth, and a lot of them have become profitable, or at least have positive operating income, which is massive. And so in 2021, we should expect to just see continued growth, a lot of it in over 100%. So this is why, again, we want to know the facts now and make decisions now that will benefit us and make us more money in the future. That is what investing is all about. So you have to look at the facts objectively in order to make these decisions. And going forward, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these multi-state operators, to be honest, at least holding until 2022. So that's exciting, and the best part is that these valuations seem very reasonable. As we look across the leading MSOs and smaller ones, we believe the prices at which they are trading are reasonable. So at no point are they overvalued like most of the market, like tech. So that is an interesting thing to see. Also, be excited for when the Safe Banking Act or some legislation changes do pass, that these companies will no longer have to be paying the 1080E taxation, which I believe is 15%. So they're paying 15% tax where other companies are paying much less. So that will just add to their cash flow and income, which is great. And again, what could go wrong? They're saying the main thing is that one of the biggest risks is envision that the supply could move into balance with demand in certain states more quickly. However, as new markets open, like New Jersey and Arizona will this year, and like many of them will likely change their legislation in 2021 and open in 2022, like New York, Texas, Pennsylvania for adult use, this potential loss of profitability from supply catching up to demand will be offset by that because they're getting into new markets. I think the final risk is that the federal government could move too quickly on the regulatory front, and we expect that this is a very unlikely scenario that probably requires the Democrats to take the Senate next month. And again, we don't know what's going to happen. We just got to wait for Tuesday. But that is the main thing. And I really don't think that if the Senate flips to Democrat, I don't think these changes are going to be made too rapidly or too quickly. Ultimately, I think the first thing to go will be the Safe Banking Act, which is the most important. Then potentially it would be the MORE Act, which I think is secondly the most important because it deschedules cannabis from the Schedule 1 classification and removes it completely. And then it would allow for eventually the States Act or some sort of change there. But I don't think that is necessarily, I don't think it's going to move too quick. But again, it doesn't matter what I think. We just got to wait to see what the vote happens. And then on Wednesday, I'll make a video going from there. But a few things to just point out to make us, help us be more optimistic, folks. Cannabis is replacing alcohol for nearly half of cannabis consumers during the pandemic. That's huge. So a Harris poll conducted released this month said that they have either used people who have used cannabis, 42 said that they have either started or increased their consumption during the pandemic, while 45 said they had replaced or reduced alcohol use with cannabis completely. I, in fact, have been one to replace alcohol completely with my cannabis use. And again, my cannabis is more of a tool. I use it in moderation, and especially just to get to sleep at night because my brain just doesn't stop churning. It's us cannabis users that are now getting legal access and are able to share our knowledge to other people that are making this slow change because, there's no hangover from alcohol, at least for myself. There's no, I don't get clouded with negative thinking and bad emotions about myself like I do with alcohol. And that's just why I'm much happier having made this switch too. And I think people will realize that, it will have the same effect for them as well. And another percentage to point out, 54 said that they did so to reduce stress, half said that they've done it to help them relax, while 48 said they do it to sleep. And of those who said that they use cannabis recreationally, 1/3 said they prefer cannabis over alcohol. Now, it's not to say that I'll never consume alcohol again. For myself personally, it's a goal, from January 8th, 2020 to January 8th, 2021. I'm 5 days away from being able to have a beer again. But it's just an interesting thing to say that I don't feel the need to use it at all. And that's a very powerful feeling. And last but not least, good news is that parents are also turning to pot during the pandemic. More than half the respondents, 52, who have ever used cannabis and have kids under the age of 18 said they've started or increased their consumption of cannabis use. So again, folks, as we change the narrative, this becomes more normal. This is all good, and it's really us, the cannabis, aficionados, or the cannabis entrepreneurs, or the cannabis consumers, or the cannabis investors, or cannabis educators that are really changing the narrative and driving this. This is you guys and me. It's us. So that's really hopeful to see, folks. And last but not least, one of the few companies featured. Now, obviously, these companies, especially the U.S. multi-state operators, you don't necessarily need any news stories coming from them up to date and often. We just want to see them execute on the ground floor like they're doing, and they should be releasing their earnings in February, and that's something also another catalyst to look forward to. But I just wanted to point out, as again, I'm an Afria shareholder in Canada, there is at least some good things to be looking forward to in this merger, and they expect to be EBITDA positive and not burning cash. So let's look in a little bit deeper as to what they mean by this, but that is something hopeful because, again, long-term Canadian play is more of a long-term global play as well, and this should at least help any Afria shareholders feel a little bit better about their investments long-term. Because one thing I'd kind of forgotten, but Tilray has a partnership with Anheuser-Busch. So Irwin, in a recent interview, is mentioning that Anheuser-Busch is a major brewer out there, obviously, and I would love to expand the relationship and the distribution. So when you consider they got Sweetwater as a draft beer business that is a connection to cannabis and millennial consumers, it's a different play. And there's a lot more that can be done with the combination of Anheuser-Busch, Tilray, Aphria, Sweetwater bringing CBD and THC drinks. Now again, this does require US legalization, but with Tuesday we're closer than ever. We just have to hold our thumbs and be patient. But yeah, this is very exciting, and they're going to be an attractive partner to other industries wanting to get into it. But this is the big thing, cash flow positive. Simon believes the companies have the right management teams with experience in CPG, consumer packaged goods, to make the business a success. So when you look at where they're at right now, the good news is Tilray is going to get to EBITDA positive this quarter, next quarter. I mean, that's not something I would have believed without him hearing this, because if you look at their balance sheet, it's pretty terrible. But when you put their EBITDAs together, costs will be EBITDA positive, cash flow positive, and operating cash. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see, but I do trust Irwin a lot more than I trust Aphria's old management, and he does have the track record to back it up. So at some point, you just got to trust the right management to do the right thing. And again, they're looking big into the international markets. When you go fishing, where do you fish? You go fishing where the fish are, and Europe has 600 million people, and that's why they're most excited about that medical market. So they're not getting too ahead of themselves looking for India and Asian markets yet, but I think the main thing that is important to consider is that if you take what they have today, they've got good-sized businesses in different areas. They're well-diversified, plus they've got the $120 million business in the U.S. today from Sweetwater, which has opportunities to grow. So this, at least I just wanted to round out for any Aphria investor as well, is why I'm still holding, and ultimately I'm very confident in this company in the long run, but all of these other titles are, again, just a reason for us to be happy that the narrative is slowly but changing. And folks, I will be back Wednesday to report, give an update of what's happened, but I just want to wish you all a great weekend and an awesome Sunday, and again, a happy new year. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like, as it really helps out my channel, and subscribe if you don't want to miss any new videos, and I will see you on Wednesday, folks. Have a great day.